My parents kicked me out at 17, so my brother could move in with his fiancée. The day I turned 17 should have been all about me blowing out candles on my favorite chocolate cake from that little bakery downtown. Instead, I was blowing goodbye. Kisses to my childhood bedroom. No joke. Picture this. Me standing in the middle of my room surrounded by half-packed Nike duffels and Target storage bins when my dad drops the bomb that I gotta vacate the premises. Pronto. We need your room for Justin and Melissa, he said, not even trying to sugarcoat it. They need the space now that the baby's coming. Our San Diego house wasn't exactly tiny, 3 bedrooms in a decent neighborhood where the palm trees swayed, and you could smell the ocean if the wind was right. But apparently, there wasn't room for me anymore. Justin, my 24-year-old brother, had always been the golden child, quarterback in high school, business degree, and now engaged to his college sweetheart with a baby on the way. Meanwhile, I was just the quiet kid who liked drawing and spent too much time in my room according to my parents. But where am I supposed to go? I asked, feeling my throat tighten up. I still have a year left of high school. Mom was folding my clothes into a suitcase like this was totally normal. We've worked it all out, sweetie. You'll stay with Aunt Sophia for now. We'll keep paying your cell phone bill and give you an UZ allowance until you turn 18. Wow, how generous. Keeping my phone on so they could what? Text me when they needed someone to water their plants? Don't look so dramatic, Dad said, rolling his eyes. It's not like we're abandoning you. Justin needs to start his family right, and this makes the most sense. The most sense for who? Definitely not for the kid being kicked to the curb on her birthday. Dad's Ford Explorer was packed up within hours, my whole life squeezed into the back of an SUV like I was nothing but an inconvenience. The drive to Aunt Sophia's place across town was dead silent except for my parents chatting about renovation plans for my room. I'm thinking a nice mint green for the nursery, Mom said, like I wasn't even there. Melissa wants something gender neutral. We'll need to get rid of that desk, Dad replied. Make room for the crib. That desk was where I'd done my homework for the past decade, where I'd written stories, drawn pictures, and cried over math, problems I couldn't solve. But sure, trash it. Who cares? By the time we pulled into Aunt Sophia's driveway, I was fighting back tears. Not because I was sad. Okay, maybe a little. But because I was freaking furious. They were dumping me. Like yesterday's Starbucks. We'll call you tomorrow, Mom said, giving me a quick hug before practically shoving me out the door. Don't forget you have that calculus test on Monday. Right, because getting kicked out of my house shouldn't affect my GPA. They didn't even wait to see if Aunt Sophia was home. Just dropped my bags on the porch, waved, and peeled out like they were making a getaway. Update. Guys, I can't believe how many of you have responded to my story. I'm literally sitting here in my aunt's guest room reading your comments with tears in my eyes. So many of you have been through similar situations and come out stronger. My aunt has been incredible since I arrived, but I'm worried about what happens when she finds out my parents straight up lied to her about why I'm here. Will she even want me to stay when she knows the truth? Aunt Sophia was nothing like my parents. For starters, she didn't treat me like I was taking up too much space just by existing. Honey, I'm so glad you're here, she said, helping me drag my suitcases inside her cozy 2-bedroom condo. The place smelled like cinnamon and coffee, a million times more welcoming than my own house had felt in years. Thanks for letting me crash here, I mumbled, still trying to process everything. Of course. Your mom said you wanted some independence before college. I think it's a great idea. I nearly choked on my own spit. She said what now? That this was your idea? To get a taste of living away from home before you go off to college next year? Aunt Sophia looked confused. Wasn't it? The betrayal hit me like a truck. Not only had they kicked me out, but they'd framed it like this was something I'd asked for. Like I'd volunteered to be homeless on my birthday. Aunt Sophia must have seen something in my face because she immediately sat me down at her kitchen island and pushed a Dr. Pepper my way. Tell me what's really going on. So I did. Everything. How Justin and his pregnant fiancée needed the space. How my parents had decided I was the expendable one. How they'd packed me up and shipped me off with barely a goodbye. By the time I finished, Aunt Sophia's face had gone from confused to straight-up murderous. She grabbed her iPhone and dialed my dad's number, putting it on speaker. Hey, Soph, you guys get settled? Dad answered, sounding way too casual. Mark, did you seriously kick your daughter out of her home on her 17th birthday? Aunt Sophia's voice was calm, but in that scary way that means you're about to get wrecked. The silence on the other end was deafening. It's not like that, he finally said. We're just making necessary adjustments for your adult son and his fiancée, at the expense of your minor daughter? Aunt Sophia cut him off. And then you lied to me about it? We didn't want to burden you with, she's not a burden, Mark. She's a child, your child, who you're legally responsible for, by the way. I'd never heard anyone talk to my dad like that before. It was like watching someone stand up to the school bully. Listen, Sophia, this is a family matter, and I am family, and right now I seem to be the only one acting like it. She took a deep breath. She can stay with me as long as she needs to. And you and Linda better figure out what kind of parents you want to be, because from where I'm standing, you're failing spectacularly. She hung up before he could respond. Then she turned to me with the kindest smile. Honey, you're welcome here, for as long as you want. No conditions, no timeline, this is your home now. For the first time that day, I felt like I could breathe. Over the next week, Aunt Sophia helped me settle in. She cleared out her home office so I could have a proper bedroom, not just the guest room. She took me shopping for some new decor at Target. Nothing fancy, just some string lights, a new comforter, and some posters to make the space feel like mine. I know it's not the same as your old room, she said as we hung up a tapestry, but maybe we can make it even better. Meanwhile, my parents were blowing up my phone with texts about how I was overreacting and needed to consider the family's needs. Whatever, I wasn't the one who'd thrown a family member out like last week's trash. Justin texted too, but his messages were different. I'm sorry, he wrote. I didn't know they were going to do this. I thought you were okay with it. I wasn't sure if I believed him. How could he not know? But at least he was the only one who seemed to care how I felt. School was weird. I told my friends I was staying with my aunt for a while, but I didn't go into details. How do you explain that your parents think you're less important than some extra closet space? My bestie Maddie knew something was up, though. She kept sliding me Reese's cups during lunch and offering to let me vent. My house is always open if you need somewhere to crash, she said. My mom loves you. It was nice to know I had options, but honestly, Aunt Sophia's place was starting to feel more like home than my actual home ever had. Then came the Reddit post. I don't know what possessed me to spill my guts to the internet, but one night I just needed to get it all out. I wrote everything, the birthday eviction, the lies, the favoritism toward Justin. I wasn't expecting much, maybe some advice, or a few people telling me to suck it up. What I got was viral validation. Update. Holy moly, you guys. I never expected this post to blow up like this. The messages of support have been overwhelming, in the best way. Several of you have asked about legal options, and I'm definitely considering them. My aunt has been talking to a family lawyer, friend of hers. Meanwhile, my brother Justin has been blowing up my phone asking to meet in person. Says he wants to explain his side of things. I've been ignoring him, but I'm starting to wonder, should I hear him out or keep my distance? My post hit the front page overnight. Thousands of comments, most of them telling me my parents were straight up trash and I deserved better. Some people shared similar stories. Kids who'd been pushed aside for siblings, parents who played favorites, families that fractured and never healed. My phone was blowing up with Reddit notifications when the first text from my mom came through. What do you think you're doing? Take that down immediately. You're making us look terrible. Not, I'm sorry we hurt you, or let's talk about this. Just concern about how they look to strangers on the internet. Dad's message was worse. This is a private family matter. You have no right to air our business online. This is exactly the kind of immature behavior that made this arrangement necessary. Oh, so now they had a reason beyond Justin's baby? Cool story, bro. The real shocker came from extended family. Turns out my post had made its way to Facebook where my mom's cousin had shared it, not realizing I was the author. Suddenly, my phone was lighting up with messages from relatives I barely saw at Christmas. Is this true? Asked my grandma on mom's side. Your parents did what? From Uncle Terry, and my personal favorite, from my dad's sister. Mark always was a selfish little, shit, you can come live with us in Portland if you want. The family group chat was on fire. My parents were getting dragged, and for once, they couldn't control the narrative. Justin's texts were different. Can we talk, please? I didn't know it would go down like this, I swear. I blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Justin. I couldn't deal with their drama when I was finally starting to feel stable again. Aunt Sophia became my rock. She didn't just give me a place to stay, she gave me what my parents never had, respect. She asked my opinion on dinner options. She knocked before entering my room. She didn't make me feel like I was inconveniencing her by existing. Your parents are blowing up my phone, she told me one night over Taco Bell. They want me to convince you to take down that post. Are you going to? I asked, nervous. Honey, that's not my place. You have every right to tell your story. She dipped her Doritos Locos taco in hot sauce. But be prepared. They're not going to let this go. She was right. A week after my post went viral, I walked out of school to find my parents' Explorer parked in the pickup lane. Mom was in the passenger seat, sunglasses on despite the cloudy day. Dad was leaning against the hood, arms crossed. My stomach dropped. I considered turning around and going back inside, but what would that solve? I'd have to face them eventually. Get in the car, Dad said when I approached. Not hello, not how are you, just a command. No thanks. I'll take the bus. This has gone on long enough, Mom said, getting out. You've made your point. It's time to come home and fix this mess you've created. I actually laughed. The mess I created? You literally kicked me out. We did not kick you out, Dad hissed, looking around to see if anyone was listening. We made an arrangement for your brother's growing family. You're being dramatic. Is that why you lied to Aunt Sophia? Because it was just an arrangement? Mom had the decency to look embarrassed. Dad just looked pissed. Look, he said, lowering his voice, things have gotten complicated. Your grandfather saw that ridiculous post. That stopped me cold. Grandpa Howard, Dad's father, was not someone to mess with. He was old school strict but fair, and he had serious money. The kind of money that made people behave. He's threatening to change his will, Mom cut in. He says no grandson of his is going to live in a house where family gets thrown away. And there it was. The real reason for this ambush. Not because they missed me or realized they'd messed up, because Grandpa was threatening their inheritance. So you don't care about me. You care about the money. I said, feeling strangely calm. That's not, Mom started. Of course we care about you, Dad interrupted. That's why we're here, to bring you home where you belong. I looked at them, really looked at them. Mom in her Nordstrom dress, Dad in his Brooks Brothers shirt. Both of them looking inconvenienced more than concerned. I don't belong there, I said finally. You made that pretty clear, and I'm good with Aunt Sophia. This isn't up for debate, Dad said, his voice hardening. Get in the car, now. Actually, it is up for debate. I'm 17, not 7. You can't just order me around. As long as we're paying your bills, you're not, I cut in. Aunt Sophia is. Because she actually cares about me, not what some post on the internet might cost her. Dad's face went red. Your aunt is filling your head with nonsense. She's always been jealous of what we have. What you have? You mean a daughter you threw away like she was nothing? I was shouting now, not caring who heard. You know what? I feel sorry for Justin's baby. That poor kid is going to grow up with grandparents who only care about appearances and money. I turned and walked away, ignoring their calls. My hands were shaking, but I didn't cry. I was done crying over people who couldn't see my worth. Update. You guys are the best support system a girl could ask for. Your comments have kept me going through some really dark moments. So, big news. My grandfather showed up at Aunt Sophia's today. I haven't seen him in months, and suddenly he's sitting at the kitchen table wanting to talk about the future. He says he has a proposal that will fix everything. I'm scared it's just another adult trying to control my life. Should I even listen to what he has to say? What if it makes things worse? 3 days later, Justin texted from a new number I hadn't blocked. Can we meet? Just us. No mom and dad, please. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell, but another part, the part that remembered building forts in the backyard and watching him play football under Friday night lights, wanted to hear what he had to say. Fine. Balboa Park, by the pond, 4 p.m. I chose a public place on purpose. No drama, no shouting, and plenty of witnesses if things got weird. Justin was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench and bouncing his leg nervously. He looked different, tired, with dark circles under his eyes. He stood when he saw me, then seemed unsure what to do, like he wanted to hug me but knew better. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down, leaving plenty of space between us. What do you want, Justin? He took a deep breath. First, I want to say I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you. I should have said something when they started packing your stuff. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He looked down at his hands. I've been the favorite for so long. I guess I just expected things to go my way. I never thought about what that meant for you. At least he was honest about it. Melissa and we fought about it. Bad. She was horrified when she found out what they did. Said she wouldn't raise our baby in a house built on kicking a teenager out. He shook his head. She's right. So what now? I asked. You want me to come back so your fiancé doesn't think you're a jerk? No. He looked me straight in the eye. I want you to do whatever makes you happy and safe. If that's staying with Aunt Sophia, then stay there. I'll support you either way. And Mom and Dad? I told them they were wrong, that what they did was messed up beyond belief. He ran a hand through his hair. They didn't like hearing that from me, I bet. They're freaking out about Grandpa. He's seriously talking about cutting them out completely. I shrugged. Not my problem. No, it's not. Justin looked out at the pond where ducks were paddling lazily. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this way better than I would have at your age. We sat in silence for a while, watching the ducks. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't awful either. Melissa wants you to know you're welcome at the baby shower, he said finally. And in our lives. Just because Mom and Dad are being toxic doesn't mean we have to be. It was a small thing, but it meant something. I'll think about it. As I walked back to catch the bus to Aunt Sophia's, I felt lighter somehow, like I'd put down a heavy backpack I'd been carrying for years. The day Grandpa Howard showed up at Aunt Sophia's door was the day everything changed again. He was imposing as ever in his crisp button-down and slacks, but his eyes were kind when he looked at me. There's my girl, he said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like Old Spice and peppermint. Let's talk. Over coffee and the homemade cookies Aunt Sophia stress-baked whenever company came, Grandpa laid out his plan. I've spoken to your parents, he said, stirring cream into his mug. Given them an ultimatum, really. Either they sign over guardianship to Sophia, or I'm cutting them out of my will entirely. I nearly choked on my cookie. What? You heard me. You're a minor, and they can't just pass you around like an unwanted Christmas fruitcake. He took a sip of coffee. They have two choices. Give Sophia legal guardianship until you turn 18, or lose their inheritance. Their choice. But that's... I couldn't even form words. Fair? He finished. I think so. You don't discard family when they become inconvenient. Aunt Sophia looked as shocked as I felt. Howard, that's a big step. Are you sure? Never been more sure of anything in my life. He turned to me. Unless you want to go back to them? No, I said without hesitation. I'm good here. That's what I thought. He nodded. Now, if you're staying here, we need to make it official, and you'll need support for college, living expenses, all that. I've set up a trust in your name. Your parents can't touch it. I started to cry then. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in forever, I felt like someone was putting me first. I didn't do this for the money, I whispered. I know that, kiddo. That's why you deserve it. 2 days later, my parents showed up with papers already signed. They'd chosen the money. Of course they had. This is temporary, Mom said as she handed over the guardianship documents, just until you come to your senses. Actually, it's until I turn 18, I corrected, and then I'll make my own choices about who gets to be in my life. Dad couldn't even look at me. He was too busy looking at what he was losing, not his daughter, but the room she used to occupy. Justin sends his love, Mom added stiffly. He's very upset about all this. I talked to Justin directly now, I said, and he knows where to find me. They left without hugging me goodbye. I watched them drive away from the porch of Aunt Sophia's condo, my home now, legally and emotionally. You okay? Aunt Sophia asked, putting an arm around my shoulders. Yeah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. I think I am. Over the next few months, life settled into a new normal. Aunt Sophia became just Sophia at my request. She wasn't trying to be my mom. She was something better, an adult who respected me, guided me without controlling me, and made me feel wanted. Justin and Melissa had their baby, a little girl they named Lily. They moved into an apartment of their own, choosing independence over the free ride at my parents' house. Justin texted me pictures of Lily almost daily, and I found myself looking forward to being Auntie. Grandpa Howard was a regular visitor, showing up with pints of Ben & Jerry's and stories about my dad as a kid that helped me understand why he turned out the way he did. Not excusing it, just explaining it. As for my parents, radio silence. They'd chosen, and so had I. Sometimes I thought about my old room, now painted mint green, filled with baby things instead of my posters and sketches. I wondered if they missed me, or if they were relieved to be free of the quiet kid who never quite fit their expectations. But most days, I didn't think about them at all. I was too busy living the life I was building, applying to colleges with Sophia's help, making plans for the future, and learning what family really means. It's not about sharing DNA or living under the same roof. It's about who shows up when everyone else walks away. It's about who makes space for you when others try to make you smaller. My parents kicked me out at 17 so my brother could move in with his fiancée. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about priorities. They did, just not the one they intended. Sometimes getting kicked out is the push you need to find where you truly belong.